Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County at our recently designed cargo hub, and in this video we're going to focus on ramping up all of the source industries fueling this cargo hub, as well as thinking about connecting it to Lincoln and maybe another city as well. And then depending on how far we get with that stuff, we might even start to consider bringing the construction materials by Tacoma over and connect that up to this hub. Alright, so before we fully get into the contents of this video, this is the first video after the final major update that was released. So I want to quickly go over some of the things that were added, because a lot of them are some pretty nice quality of life features that will apply to us and probably also apply to anyone else who is playing along or playing on their own saves. And so the thing that I'm most excited about is probably this one, which is they've added snapping to existing road grid layouts. So you can see here we're getting a snap grid here for this road to continue perfectly straight. We're getting a snap line here to be perpendicular to this road, and then they also do 45-degree angles. It looks like it's a little bit off because it can't really decide which road it wants to base these off of, but we also get 45-degree snaps as well as 90-degree snaps for roads now. And so some cool nifty little tricks to do with this is if you want a perfect 90-degree angle turn with a curved road, you just need to pull it straight out of the road, and then any point snapping along this grid line will be a perfect 90-degree angle for that curve. And you can see it's pretty versatile with how big and short that curve can get. So that'll be pretty exciting when it comes to laying out and fixing some of our city grids later on in the future. And then staying on the topic of roads, they've also allowed you to snap roads next to each other. So now we can run parallel roads pretty easily without having to guess if it's parallel or not anymore. And then another pretty big one for people who plan ahead is stations and depots will now snap to the existing streets. So you no longer have to place the building first and then connect roads or try to perfectly angle your station parallel with the road. It automatically snaps to wherever you're closest to, and I believe this works for depots as well. So if we grab this, it'll snap perfectly at a 90-degree angle to whatever road you're trying to snap with. And then the last thing to do with roads is improved traffic simulation. So private vehicles will no longer only use one lane of a road to get somewhere. I know we're not really running into that issue anywhere here, so I can't really showcase it, but in previous playthroughs, especially with highway networks, cars would only use one lane because that would be the easiest and quickest way to go between cities. Now it seems that they should spread out across however many lanes you have and distribute that traffic a little bit more equally, so hopefully that means we'll no longer have lines of cars trying to get in each city. And then moving on to some other changes, they've allowed you to pretty easily change tunnel entrances now. So it's just as simple as clicking the entrance of the tunnel, and then you can select whatever you want, and then replace it for however much it costs. I believe that works on every type of tunnel, so it'll work for roads as well. And then the last thing that we're going to cover here is the ability to have three-way switches on trains. Before, you could only do two like this. You wouldn't be able to add a third one, but now it's just as easy as this, and now we have a three-way switch for our train tracks. And I'm sure there's a lot of other smaller things and more nuanced changes to the things I just mentioned, but for the most part, that's all the big changes, and although we won't be able to use some of them right away, I do look forward to finally having those quality of life improvements that will make this game just that much more immersive. Alright, so now let's get into what we actually want to get into in this video, and that's just going to be improving everything involving this cargo hub. So we're going to go to our source industries, so our forest up here, the sawmill, all the food processing and machine stuff out this way in Pittsburgh, and we're going to bring those up to speed, make sure we're producing enough to fuel all the cities that we're currently connected to. And then I think once we're done with that, we're going to first of all improve some connections to Lincoln, and we might even try connecting more resources to Lincoln. So I'm not sure if we'll end up doing that by train or if we'll just end up trucking it all along this road into the city for now, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Let's just start off with some of our resources. And so the first thing we are going to do is look at this tools line. Now, this tools line is currently supplying Lincoln, Roswell, and Pittsburgh. I believe those are all the cities that we're going to worry about for the most part in this video. So let's just go around, take a look, and figure out what our total tally needs to be to serve those 3 cities. And so after looking at all 3 cities and sort of rounding up to account for growth, we'll need this tools factory to pretty much double its current output. We want this around 650 in the end, and we're currently only producing 365-ish. So that'll probably involve these trains getting updated. We'll probably have to connect another forest in this area and some upgrades with that line, but let's get into that, and we'll start from the forest and figure out our way as we make it all the way back to the tools. And so if we take a look at our forests, they can produce at a maximum of 800. So adding those two together, we have a total potential of 1,600 logs coming out of this forest. Then at the sawmill, that gets reduced 2 to 1. So that brings us back down to a rate of 800. So we obviously won't be maxing out these forests yet, but we will be getting pretty close, as we will want our total rate of logs coming out of here to sit close to, I believe that would be about 650 per forest. And so now, thinking about how best we want to do this, let's take a look at our train first. And so our train is currently moving things at a rate of 315. It is just barely earning us money, but I want to see if maybe we can build something better. It's been a while. I'm sure we have stronger trains, so let's see if we can maybe improve this a little bit. Ideally, maybe get this rate up to 400, maybe even 500, so that the load is split pretty evenly between trains and trucks. Alright, and so this is the train that we're going to at least try to replace it with. It's a slightly more improved Heisler locomotive, as there's really not anything better that we currently have unlocked. Everything else has sort of too high of a top speed for how short the route is, and also not enough power to really get up to the hill and fully utilize that engine. So we'll stick with this. We have quite a few more flat cars behind it, as this has a capacity of 204 compared to our previous capacity of 153. So we'll replace this, and we'll pretty much just monitor this train and make sure it's still earning us money, and then from there on we can start to manage the line rate a little bit better. Alright, and so after watching this train go back and forth for a little bit, it seems to be doing okay. It seems to be following in the same pattern that it was before, so we'll just barely be earning money for most of the trips, and then it seems like every now and then there will be a period where we lose a tiny bit of money. But I think what we're going to do is, this train currently runs at a rate of 417. I think we're just going to duplicate this train. That'll get our line rate up to a little over 800, and then we'll have our trucks handle the rest of it, just so we can keep our roads a little bit cleaner out around here. And so all we'll have to do is come in here, click duplicate. That train will come out of our train depot that's up here, and it looks like they're already pretty evenly spaced, so we don't have to worry about that then. And so our goal is between our train and our trucks to have a line rate of about 1,300. And so this train will be handling about 800 of that, which means our trucks will need to handle, I believe that'll be about 500 for the rate for these trucks. So we might actually be able to get there simply by upgrading our trucks to the, we'll go with the flatbed trucks. I know they're not as full on capacity, but the running cost is a little bit lower, and flatbed trucks make a little more sense for a logging area. And so it looks like that gets us to a rate of 488, 490. So I actually think I'm okay leaving it there because our train is a little over 800. So with this line being a little under 500, I think that's just fine. So we can leave off our log end now. We'll now be taking a look at the sawmill. We'll see these numbers start to go up a lot. And then this train that is taking the planks over to the tools factory, that's going to have to now operate at a rate of 650 to keep up with our logs. And so the first thing I want to do is extend this platform because we did have to extend it for the other train. And our next train will most definitely also be just as long, if not longer. So we'll definitely need the extra platform space. So we can come in here, grab our cargo platform, and we'll add 3 more segments for that. And we'll fill it in with tracks. And then we'll just have to connect back up to these tracks here. It's a little bit of a steep drop, but I think for now it's okay. We'll just have that come in like so, and then replace our signal. And now we will look to replace these trains. Alright, so our train's going to be a 442 Atlantic, and we'll have 10 of these super heavy flat cars on them. And that allows us to have a top speed of 60 miles an hour and much higher capacity per car. Now they are extremely heavy, so hopefully they won't take too long to get to top speed. But the line is mostly flat, so we shouldn't have to deal with any issues there. We'll just come through and make sure these trains are still able to do their route just fine. And then from there, we can start to add cars in order to get us up to the rate that we need. Alright, so we did end up doing some minor tweaks to this train. We had to switch out the super heavy flat cars for just some triple axle flat cars, as the super heavy ones were a little bit too heavy for us. The trains struggled to get up to speed. So this configuration, although it is longer, allows us to carry just as much and get up to our top speed of 50 miles an hour. And that ends us up with a rate of about 450. So I think we could just get away with duplicating a train. 687, that's okay. That's a little bit over where we wanted, but we're not going to be perfect on everything. So having that third train should be just fine. And also, real quick as a side note, one more thing that we didn't really go over, much like tunnels, bridges you can also change now just by clicking them and then changing the bridge type with this menu. So that's something else with the new update that I didn't mention earlier but just came across. So that's also something very useful that we can utilize later on. Alright, so now we should slowly start to see this production number or ramp up here at the tools factory. We'll just want to make sure that we're now fully supplying the cities that we're delivering to. So here in Roswell, it seems like it's finally been able to fill in all of this empty space that we had after we went and reconstructed the street grid. There seems to be a few spots that we might actually be able to come in and quickly fill in just to give it that little extra push. So we'll add a street here, and then this street can come in and connect to that intersection. And I think that leaves us off with a nice, well-rounded city here. So let's figure out where these tools need to get to. And it looks like the majority of tools has shifted down into this area of the city. Now we'll just have to figure out where the best unload spot is. It doesn't seem like it'll let us build on this segment of road, which would honestly probably be the most ideal spot. But it looks like we could probably build somewhere around here, and that'll get us pretty much everything that we would need. We'll just have to manage this to go to this stop instead. And then, of course, we'll want to upgrade these trucks to the covered tarpaulin trucks to increase our line rate to 177. Now it's still significantly below the 277 that the city's requiring, so we'll just duplicate this a little bit. I think 266 is a good number. Again, we are not covering all of the tools, since some of it is out of range of the unload stop, so being a little bit under probably still fulfills everything that we can reach. And then our next simplest line will probably be here in Lincoln, which also requests almost the same amount, 276 for tools. Now this one is tricky, as we might need to split this into 2 separate unload stops. Or I suppose now could be a good time to come through and fix some of the streets here in Lincoln. So let's do that first. We'll make this a little bit nicer looking as it crawls up and down the hill, so we don't end up with these weird cliffs. And then I think once we're done with that, then we'll come and figure out the best spot for our tool unload stop. Alright, so now we have fixed the road network in Lincoln a little bit. Looks like some weird things are popping up still a little. So we'll come through and lock these roads, because I really don't like this connection. I think this road's fine, but I think that connection's not necessarily what we want. So we'll just lock all those roads, make sure nothing happens there. And then we fixed up some of the intersections in this area, make it a little bit more rational. And then we also came through and we fixed up the roads coming up this hill a little bit. We tried to design it a little bit so that we can have buildings come up here. And we tried not to make the road too steep in some places, although we do have to go up the maximum slope. But of course there won't be anything really too important up here. I think maybe something that might be cool once the city gets a little bit bigger, maybe we could build something up here, some sort of landmark or monument that would sort of be like a tourist attraction, since you would get a nice view of the city and the river. So maybe another time when we feel a little inspired about that. We can continue building these roads up this way and then out around this way. But for now, I think Lincoln's pretty good. We did cut into the tools demand quite a good bit. So it looks like now we could probably just build this on this road here, and it'll probably cover just about everything. So let's get this placed right before the intersection here, and then I believe this is where we're currently dropping those off. So really it's just a matter of moving that slightly farther down the street, and then we'll have to come through and upgrade our trucks. And now, because we are using this road quite a bit now, I think I want to upgrade this to a nice larger road. I'm not sure, maybe the next one up. I'm debating on if we should just do a 4-lane road entirely all the way through here, as that could make sense, as this road will most likely become important for private transportation farther in the future once we start connecting cities by road. So I kind of like that. We'll go with a 4-lane road all the way through and connect to Lincoln. We will have to redo some things in this area, but that's fine. We'll just simplify everything, make the road a lot more sort of official, and then we'll upgrade our routes going into Lincoln and then coming into the cargo hub. Alright, so now we have our large road connecting our tools factory to Lincoln. I think this is a nice road that'll provide plenty of connections in the future, especially connecting by road to Roswell, and then maybe eventually all the way out to Pittsburgh as well. And so we've adjusted our line rate here to 221, which is just under what's needed in Lincoln. So maybe we'll just duplicate a little bit, maybe like 2 or 3 more vehicles, and that's really all that we would need. So 240 I think is a good number to stop at. Alright, so now the last portion of this line that I think we need to update is our trucks coming into the cargo hub. And now that is, I believe, currently solely dependent on the Pittsburgh rate, which is 43 tools. And I have a feeling we're already probably about there. Yeah, we're over that. We're all the way up at 114, which we'll just leave that for now, because eventually we're going to end up filling that rate on this line anyway. So I believe that should now be our tools line fully upgraded and ready to provide for all of these cities. Alright, so now while we wait for our tools to slowly go through and do everything it needs to, we can focus now on our machines and food lines, which I believe currently those are only connected to Roswell. So machines is going to be the biggest thing that we need to update, as Pittsburgh requests about 161 and Roswell requests 250. So I believe if we add that together, that should be about 400, and we're only producing about half of that. So we're gonna have to come through here and really ramp up production here on machines. So we're gonna have to figure something out with all these trucks in order to get some more planks in here. And then hopefully by now, I believe we have better trains unlocked that we might be able to start to really start getting some profitable, faster trains here. So we'll get to work on both of those, and hopefully when we come back, we'll be able to be close to outputting 400 machines from this machines factory. Alright, and so now I believe everything should be upgraded so that our machines factory can output close to 400 machines. It is going to take a while, as resources do take a while to make their way through the resource chain, but our iron line, that's moving iron in at a rate of 800, coal a little bit better at a rate of almost 900, but we can come back and tweak that later. We added some more of these freestyle industries to help with our steel production and to also spice up the industry area a little bit. So now we'll start to see iron and coal start to populate in this area. So that'll be cool to see as those come in. Our boats here are now able to move steel at a rate of 500, although we can't really sell one because then that would bring us under 400. So we'll just keep that there for now. And then our logs are coming in at a rate of 795. This is a tricky one, as a train is really not viable in this area. I think ideally we could have another forest set up around here and bring in trucks on the other side, because I think we're just overloading our road and our stations at this point, but this is running at the limit and I'm okay with it hovering around 800. I do believe that's going to fluctuate as time goes on. I mean, we can always just add a few more vehicles, but that's not going to make things any better. And then this boat line is moving at a rate of 433, and remember this one also goes all the way out to Allentown to deliver the machines to Allentown. Now, we didn't factor that in to our initial calculations, but we'll just let it go and see sort of how things go about with everything else. We can see our machines factory slowly working up to 400, so it will get there in time, and then our trucks heading into Pittsburgh moving at a rate of 400 as well. And so taking a look at our train here, we're going to most definitely probably need to duplicate this. So we'll just right away duplicate that so that we end up about at a rate of 265. Now I assume that should be good since we are just bringing food and machines to Roswell at this point. So whatever Roswell needs, food and machines. So yes, that should be at about 300 coming from Pittsburgh, but I'm okay with where we're at for now. When we connect to another city, we can probably get another train on that route. But let's now take a look at the food end of things and make sure that we're delivering enough food for Roswell and all the cities connected to this food processing plant. So now Roswell only needs 50 food, and let's just make sure it's getting that food. I'm not sure where we're currently delivering those. So it looks like we're delivering them there, and that does cover all of our food. So really it's just a matter of making sure our rates cover it. So our trucks there look good. This should be bringing machines and food in, and I think this is just way too much. If we just simply add up our machines and food, that's only a little over 300, so we can probably sell one or two of these boats and be just fine. We might even be able to sell one more. And so we'll settle with that number there. And so if we take a look at our food processing plant and its connections, it's only connected to Pittsburgh and Roswell. So Pittsburgh needs 260 food, So that's something we definitely need to work on. And then Roswell, as we saw, only needs 50. So this should be up closer to 300. And I think that's just simply due to our farms and how fast we're moving grain. So let's start here with trucking our food into Pittsburgh. And so it looks like our food is split across the river. So we'll probably need 2 separate lines. We'll probably get one right about here. That'll cover all the food in this area. And then another one probably right here on this street, which unfortunately won't get these few, but will get everything down here. And actually, I think a slightly better location for this would actually be right here on this street. So we can edit our truck line. So this will go here, and a line rate of 165 seems about right for covering just this side of the road. So we'll stick with that, and then we'll have to set up a second food line to go to the other stop. Alright, so now that all of our trucks going into Pittsburgh are situated, I think we do need to redo this cargo station soon. So we'll probably come through, maybe in the next video, we'll come through and start doing some sort of housekeeping tasks. So improving our cargo stations, maybe going back and doing some extra detailing in the industries that have grown. But moving on with this line anyway. So we need a rate of about 300. That means for our food, the grain gets reduced at a rate of 2 to 1. So this will actually want closer to 600. So we'll grab all these ships and we'll replace them with what is currently our best ship, this one here. And that will bring us up to 350. Hopefully we can get up without having to introduce too many boats. I believe 14 boats should get us to about that 600. And then we'll just have to make sure that we're delivering that grain here. So this farm is connected directly to the port, so we don't have to worry about that. And then these trucks are bringing that in at a rate of 110. And these are surprisingly still horses, so a simple upgrade there could probably, or it will double us up to 200. So we don't necessarily need this line since this one farm can handle it all by itself. So we're not going to worry about dialing in that line rate exactly. But now our boats should be able to start keeping up with our demand of food. We just sort of have to wait for that all to filter through now. And then real quick, just to end off this portion of the video, we will come through and detail these farms a bit more. We'll expand them more into this valley area, and then I think once we're done with that, we'll start to wrap things up for this video. Alright, and so now with our farm expanded, I think this is a pretty good place to leave our progress off. So I think we're gonna go take a look at everything that we've done throughout this video, and then when we come back, we will double check and make sure all of our line rates are where they need to be, and then we'll talk about sort of what we're gonna do next for our projects. Alright, and so now let's come through and take a look at all of the line rates that we've adjusted in this video. So, taking a look here at our sawmill seems to still not be around that 600 mark that we wanted to be at. It does look like our trucks and trains should be able to handle it, so I suppose it's just an output thing. We're just not demanding that amount from each city. It looks like Roswell has exploded yet again, as it now needs over 100 more tools than it did before, and we're actually starting to get some medium-rise buildings here. So that's exciting, but obviously I suppose we just don't have the demand for tools yet, but hopefully we will soon, as our trains have been struggling, as they're not leaving entirely full each time. So we can either solve this by selling a couple of trucks and therefore increasing the amount that we rely on our train, which I'm not opposed to doing. I suppose we'll just do that much. That should be fine. And hopefully I'll get our train in use more. And the same thing is sort of going with these as well, although this train is still making more money than ever. It still isn't going back and forth entirely full, but we can just see here at our Roswell Tools factory, everything is making it where it needs to be. So really I think it's just a matter of coverage and delivery rates into the cities. And then as for our machines, it looks like we're getting up there as well, producing almost 500 machines, although for some reason it says some of them haven't reached their destination yet. Maybe it's still in the long backlog of trips all the way out here and then to Roswell, so that's probably why we see this number lower, but I believe everything else is functioning exactly how we want it to. All three of these steel industries seem to be working pretty well. And if we add these numbers up, we do get to about 400, maybe a little under, but our train rates should be... Yeah, our train rates are above 800, so that shouldn't really be much of an issue. This truck line is now settled in at a rate over 800, so we'll actually leave that, since I believe it's planks that we're lacking on here at the machines factory, so we'll just let that go about and do its thing. One thing I will put on our list of things to do is probably take a look at Allentown, as we have a ton of construction materials and machines waiting to be delivered here. It's just not getting into the city yet. And if we take a look at Pittsburgh here, it seems pretty happy with all the resources it's getting. We can take a look here and you can see the population exploded yet again as we rerouted a lot of things. So very exciting to see all this growth happening. And then coming to take a look at Lincoln. Lincoln seems to be getting all the tools it needs, and it seems like some buildings have started to spawn up here on these roads. Now, I'm not sure if long-term we actually want buildings on this road. We might actually come through and manually place a few, but I'm not sure how I feel about having sort of wall-to-wall buildings on this road. It just doesn't seem like it would make sense. So maybe that's something we come back to later. Maybe you guys have some ideas on what to do with this hillside, but that's just something to think about. But Lincoln seems to be growing perfectly fine. And so as for what we're going to start to work on next, I think the most immediate thing that's we're probably going to do in the next video is probably a bunch of cleanup, as the cities have yet again begun to grow a whole bunch, and some of it has gone unchecked, as we see here in Houston. These roads don't look too nice and they're not really aligning, so we'll probably come through and fix up our city street grids. Now, I know we touched Houston and Salt Lake City fairly recently, so we'll probably go pretty light on those, but some of the other cities such as Allentown and maybe even Portland here, we can start to make sense out of what it's trying to build. Pittsburgh here is just plowing through this mountain, or I guess this is more of a hill. And I'm not too sure how I feel about that, but I'd like to do that in a way that looks maybe a little bit nicer than what it's currently trying to do. So that's another area we'll look at. And then also Tacoma, getting this built up. You can see we did allow the city to grow, but it seems to try to want to curve out, which is a little bit weird. So again, we'll probably just come through and extend this street grid a whole bunch, and these new road building options will really help out with that as we expand our street layouts. So very excited to get to use those tools to their fullest abilities when it comes to city planning with our roads. And so there's nothing really immediate in terms of industries or creating any industries. So I think that is what we'll spend the majority of our time focusing on next. And then, of course, unfortunately we didn't get to connecting this construction materials plant to our cargo hub, but we could start to think about doing that. I know we've talked about it for a while, but getting a goods factory set up on the map, I think maybe somewhere in here might be good, because we do have some of the industry or some of the base resources that we would need for that sort of scattered about in the area. So maybe that's not entirely off the table, and we do have a goods factory here by Roswell. So again, more things to think about, but I don't think resource-wise we're really pressed on anything. I think a lot of it's just making sure our cities are set up best for their futures and keeping up with any upgrades and detailings to other base industries that we haven't really kept up with in a while. And so with that, that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.